the point, we knew that the map was on overgrowth, so a bit of a longer game without the ability to abuse Liberators as easily. But one thing uThermal's really good at, I feel, is just getting around your opponent. They might go for Colossus, they might have a front line that looks unbreakable with Immortals, but for uThermal, it's more about attacking 3 different locations at the same time, dropping those drops off and getting a lot of damage done behind enemy lines. Curious to see, again, we don't know how that first game played out, but that's how I imagine things went. It is interesting, though. He goes for a second barracks pretty quickly. If he follows this up with a factory, we might just see him do the regular Widow Mines that are delayed that he's used to doing, but a couple of barracks like this very early on usually is what you do if you're going to get, I don't know, a little bit paranoid about Stargates, I'd say, more than anything else. But for uThermal, he's quite the aggressive player, and it might just have some stutter step down the middle of the map. Would really love if this was a Combat Shields push, but we'll see if that ends up being on his mind or not. Because for him, that would require Tech Lab, and right now, it's just the Reactor. You get a lot of Marines out. Something that we see him actually catch players off guard with rather frequently. If you guys remember the series versus Mana earlier, Mana lost, I think it was actually on Daybreak 2, I could be wrong, but he lost one of his Oracles to a lot of Marines being just in a position he was not ready for. And uThermal was able to just kind of stim on in and take a victory. But uThermal's TvP has actually not been looking too bad, and what I enjoy about it most is it hasn't been too gimmicky. But Rifkin, sure, talking a lot about the Terran, and I love that bias, and I'd say yeah. But for Billowy, it's a lot weirder things to talk about for him, unfortunately, and I like to build players up in a positive light, and Billowy, I feel, no matter what I do, I have to bring him back to the fact that he's like unreliable at the game. He'll play the game well, he'll play the game badly, but the problem is you can never predict how he'll play, and I don't know if that's just, again, a little bit of that cross-server latency, the late hours in Korea getting to him. He doesn't have consistency in the Corsair Cups, unfortunately. Well, I guess that's not true, actually, because he's got consistency in terms of he usually makes it to prize money, but the question is, like, what value is that prize money? We got some support coming in, though. Got to give some love to Corvus for that sub. New sub hype. GP Creation subbed as well, I guess, while we're on the break screen listening to some music. And then Tiberian89 just cheered us 35 bits. Thank you all so much for your varying levels of support. And, of course, Riamar for the 1,500 bits is probably the biggest thing we've seen today. Big love to you too, Riamar. I hope you're having a great day over in Germany. You know, his Marines clearing out the rocks for the time being. The Observer going to float around. There's not really a lot for him to reveal. I guess seeing the fact that it's a lot of Marines will be a bit of a eye-opener, but uThermal typically plays not with like Widowmine drops and odd things like tanks, but really with Marines. So while this might not be a Combat Shields push, it's going to be 2 medevacs fully loaded with units that are about to have stim. We have a Tech Lab start up on the factory, but this is probably going to be for the Starport to swap over to later. If he's really worried about Blink, though, he may go for tanks. Actually, what does he scouter for that? Because we know it's Blink that's on the way, but does he Thermal? And I guess, yeah, he did get back in there to see that the Twilight Council was done. Maybe even saw a couple of Stalkers, so I take that back. That's going to be for tanks. And that's a great move, because tanks are so freaking good right now. So hot, guys. Seriously, 70 damage a shot. Stalkers can just not deal with it. Gotta back away in every instance. But unloads the Marines, expecting to look for a kill on the 3rd. You guys will notice he was attack command moving right away, not move commanding. Now he's into attack command and move command as he moves towards the natural base. A couple of Stalkers isn't so worrisome. The Pylons might be a little bit scary, but seriously, with Stim ready to go, a Marine sacrifice to scout, uThermal judging whether he wants to go in or not. For Billowy, though, he throws down not just a Forge, but also the Robo Bay. And I don't think it's going to be for Disruptors, unfortunately, as cool as hype as they can sometimes be. Just thinking back to like the one Disruptor drops that would wreck players like Ryung and others in recent days, it's probably just for Colossus. They're becoming a lot more standard to see. The Stalkers, I guess, hunting around, hoping to catch those medevacs. Even if they do, they'll find some Marines waiting for them, ready to fight. And that's not exactly something they're going to want to walk into. So, he might pick off a medevac, but it wouldn't be worth it. The blink away is a much better choice. Adepts get warped into the main and unloaded through this warp prism. A little bit awkward, but I think the tank should be enough. Yeah. Especially when coupled with those Marines. These medevacs just kind of chilling for the moment. Warp Prism also not going to be able to get back in and do too much. Big part of this is the Observer also scouting to see that there's just not a lot in that main right now. But Billowy, despite having gone for Blink right off the bat and going for those I'll say faster Colossus. He's not really in a position where he can't really push. He doesn't have a lot of, he has to bring to deal damage, frankly. I mean, Blink Stalkers are nice at picking things off, but they're not really the A move that you want to have. So, scans, pick off the Observer in the main. He's going to move that Command Center over before making it an orbital. That's a little bit awkward. Composition-wise, though, to talk about what goes on forward, on one hand of the scale, you've got the Colossus. This is going to be expected, I think, out of uThermal, regardless of what Billowy does for an opener. I feel like nowadays with PvT, all roads lead to Colossus. So for him, okay, you get a couple of tanks here and there. Maybe those can help with the Colossus, maybe they don't. They've got a very interesting range dynamic to them. But for the most part, Vikings and Liberators are still the way to go. Liberators more so. Oh, beautiful pick off of that Warp Prism in the main out of uThermal. Good response time, too. Moves in with some medevacs on the left side. Talk more on those Liberators in a moment because we want to see how much damage these Marines can get done. They pick up a couple of probes, but sees the Stalkers with a very nice scan and backs away to be just barely out of range. But going back to the point of the Liberators for a moment, Liberators with range are just so incredibly frustrating to deal with. Colossus have been given back some of their, not Colossus, excuse me, Tempest have been given back some of their viability in the matchup. Their range for air versus air was never really touched, but the air versus ground was, and because it was kind of, for lack of a better word, neutered, it wasn't really preferable to get Tempest out in response to things like Liberators. But I think that we're starting to see them come back into fashion. They're certainly resurging a bit. And we'll see if he goes that direction. uThermal's still quite a bit of time away from getting those Liberators to be anything close to dangerous. But he's got 2 starports. And that fusion core finishing up in just a moment's time. I have a lot of arguments to see why battlecruisers are just as viable, but I don't think we're going to see it in the pro scene until Nathanius has beaten a few more GMs. Nathanius is my poster child right now for making battlecruisers viable. I love it. I play this game really terribly, guys. I am low masters at best, but I can make battlecruisers work. So I can't wait till we see some pros make it happen. Like, I want to see somebody like Beyond or Innovation, like, pay them money to try and incorporate battlecruisers into a build, no matter how inefficient it might be. Well, anyways, my beating heart will have to rest still a little bit longer because it is Liberator range, as expected, as is standard. But while the Liberators may or may not start bulking up back at home, there's 4 medevacs worth of units down here to the south, and uThermal's got some very serious base killing potential. Yeah, we saw him dismantle Mana in the tournament earlier by picking up a bunch of Nexus. I don't think that'll be the option here. Billowy does have eyes on this with the Observers, so if uThermal did want to come in with, oh my god, 6 medevacs loaded to go, Liberator with them, Billowy's hiding out of range, and he does this on purpose. He wants to blink the Stalkers in, picks off one of the medevacs fully loaded with cargo. 2 medevacs go down, the rest of them have got to fall back, and Billowy was way too prepared for that attack. uThermal flew into a trap. That was, I gotta get like a soundboard going for Admiral Akbar, just have that ready to play in the background. It's a trap! Because that's very much exactly what it was. Koskilla heading us up with a 4-month resub, says this is about half of a baby, isn't it? Well, I don't think that's how that works. But, for the sake of easy math argument, I'll say sure, why the hell not? Base in here might be a bit of trouble to defend. He's going to see the army come in, and he might come in from the backside, or he might choose to load up and go back towards the main, hoping for round 2 to go better than round 1. No, round 2 will go better. There's nothing here to defend. Liberator set up a landing zone for this army to unload into. And even if it's just a depth taking shots, it's still damage done. This pathway kind of zoned out too, going to be difficult to respond to. Widowmines get to burrow. Cannon going to be there for detection. Medevacs are getting picked off, and the Liberators can get those free shots on the Stalkers. Meanwhile, pushing in the middle of the map, uThermal was hoping to take advantage of the chaos, but Billowy was prepared, and he responds in kind. Oh, Widowmines get a couple of good shots, but this doesn't go so well for uThermal. Not in terms of getting attack damage done. He's bleeding out a lot, and he is getting some kills, and he's getting some trades. I mean, look at the resources lost, folks. It's almost dead even. But it just looks worse for uThermal, because he's bleeding out medevacs, and medevacs that are full of units. As he takes his 4th in the middle of the map, it's going to finish up in a moment. He's got quite a bit of Liberator production coming out. The 2-2 for the Marines and the Marauders is going to be a lot more important for protecting those Liberators. But I don't think we're going to be looking at Stalkers blinking underneath them anytime soon. Excuse me, one sec. Oh. Where did that yawn come from? Hello? We've been casting for like 3 hours now? Liberating the main's going to get picked off by the overcharge. Not before picking off about 7 probes paired up with this guy over here at the natural. Cannon was a bit much, but stops gas money, and Billowy's economy takes a bit of a hit. He does push in, though, and find uThermal's 4th, mostly unguarded. That's going to be a dead planetary. Rest in pepperonis, but uThermal will trade out for it. I'm not sure if a base trade is what he has in mind, but it's one he's going to be stuck with. As the SCVs retreat back into the main, Liberators are set up on that ramp. Oh, he's really going to try and hold the fort down. There's quite a few Marauders up here to try and stop the Stalkers from blinking underneath and tearing apart the Liberators, but they're going to do just that. Liberators will get focus fired down. uThermal going to lose a good chunk of defense in his main. But Billowy on the other side of the map is desperately producing like a Void Ray, and that's it. I don't think... we've seen this situation before. We've seen this base trade desperation out of uThermal as well. But the problem is, I don't think Billowy has any Tempest, of course, but more to the point, any Stalkers to deal with the leftover Liberators. So these are slowly going to pick away what little anti-air there is left. Probes are getting shuffled around the map. A new warping of Stalkers is made out of the last desperate attempt before all the gateways are shut down. But uThermal has Liberators on the other side of the map too. There's 6 Stalkers to deal with 6 Liberators. They're just not going to trade out the way he wants them to. Widowmines are still getting shots. They're about to reload. The Colossus is about to be picked off by Widowmine shots. Oh boy. Of course, uThermal's still got this base set up. He's got a tank. He can start floating around the map if he needs to. I think consolidating his forces is certainly something he needs to consider and needs to do. But this looks so much better for uThermal. Sitting on 106 army supply to the 52 of Billowy. I think uThermal's in the perfect situation. GG gets called. He takes the series 2-0 and advances on to the grand finals, where he's going to fight against Liquid Snoot. Now, Snoot and uThermal have played several times on our stream, but they've also played in the Go for StarCraft finals and a couple of other events we haven't been casting, so this is hardly the first time they're seeing each other in a best of 5. But that will lead to, yeah, exactly that, the finals. Stick around, folks. We're going to go to a commercial break. I need to grab a snack before we do these finals. I'm already out of energy, so we'll be back with Snoot versus uThermal, TVZ, best of 5 when we get back.